Alright, thanks a lot, Rob, for the kind introduction. Really nice to see so many of you here, although the golf masterclass is happening at the same time, so I think we had a lot of competition. And also, of course, the surfing. You went surfing yesterday, right?
No, I didn't.
Okay, but you will today. Alright, so the topic, as we were already hearing it, is about neuroscience in the world of gaming and how we can use neuroscience, neurotechnology and AI to gain deeper insights into what players actually feel when they play video games. So I'm from Brainamics, Gustav from Federation. We have a very long collaboration already. So I think Federation was one of the first,
First and best.
First and best, of course, customers that we worked with. So we learned a lot from them. I hope they also learned something from us. And today I will give you a very quick introduction to how we actually do the emotion extraction while players play the games. Give you a rough understanding of how the human brain works, so that you have a good baseline understanding. And then we will focus most of the time actually on a real use case of the technology. So Gustav will be taking over then. And of course we will leave a lot of time for any questions that you might have afterwards. What is Brainamics about? So it all started at the Technical University of Munich, where my co-founders and I did research on how we can denoise the EEG signal. So EEGs are the devices that you can see here on the slide, electroencephalograph. And what an EEG essentially does is that it measures the electrical activity in the human brain. So whenever we think about something or whenever we have emotions, there's different neurons, so different parts in the brain that get activated, and when those neurons get activated, there's an electrical signal or electrical potential that can be measured with those small sensors that you can see here. And then this signal, of course, needs to be denoised, and this is quite challenging, and that's where we started. And then, since all my co-founders were really excited gamers as well, then we decided to try to apply this somehow in the gaming industry, among other use cases. And so how does the human brain work in general? As I already said, the human brain consists of tens of millions of neurons, and they get activated by neurotransmitters. Very famous example that everyone knows about is dopamine or serotonin. So when we have positive emotions, then there's an increased amount of dopamine that gets emitted in the human brain. And the prefrontal cortex is this area, roughly the area that is highlighted here. That's where we produce most of our dopamine. So it's placed right behind the forehead, and if you produce dopamine, then this neurotransmitter dopamine will be activating this, will be received by the synapses of the neurons in your brain, which will then in return be activated, which in return then causes the electrical potential, which is then measured by the EEG. So yeah, if you are very happy, we know that the FP1 and FP2 electrodes, which are located directly in front of your forehead, are detecting an increased electrical potential. So that's how it works on a very high level. And to show you in practice how this can then be visualized, to make it a bit more intuitive, we have this example video here. Before we play it, I will give you a quick understanding of this graph on the top right here. So it's a two-dimensional representation of emotions. It's very, very high level again, but for the purpose of this presentation, we break down our 12-dimensional emotion mapping that we have internally onto this two-dimensional frame. So on the y-axis you can see a value that we call arousal. It is a general measure for how strongly your nervous system is activated. So if your nervous system is very strongly activated, then you perceive the emotions quite intensely. And then we would be active, so angry or being surprised are example emotions for that. And on the other hand, if you're very, very passively, then you're on the lower end, and then you don't perceive emotions intensely. Then the second dimension that we look at is called valence. It's here the x-axis, and there it's exactly the example of dopamine and serotonin among other neurotransmitters. So if this concentration of dopamine is high in your brain, then you have positive emotions, otherwise rather negative emotions. And we can also show this on the time axis. So we do have a time resolution of 2 Hz, so we get values every 0.5 seconds for the emotions, so we can then smooth it out and show it on a timeline. And here the orange line is for the valence, so for the positivity, and the blue line is for the arousal. So This bubble here is the eye tracking. So we also always get eye tracking from the biosensors, and yeah, we can now play the video. And what we can see is that this from mirror's edge, so the player needs to cross from this building to the next building over this bar. And before that he fell down twice, which is why we had this strong fluctuation in the positivity before. But now the player is finally successful, so we can see how his positivity peaks at a very high value. So he's really happy now that he finally managed to get to the next building. And the next challenge for him is to get up to the stairs here. So he's starting to look around, trying to understand what to do next. But as you can see, he's failing and he doesn't really know what to do. So you can see how his positivity is declining pretty rapidly actually. And at the same time we can observe that his arousal is increasing, so he's getting more focused. Overall you can see how he went all the way from being happy to being anxious, because he's still failing, until he realizes that there's this hint on the screen that tells him what to do next, and then he can just climb up the stairs and you can see how his positivity is recovering again. So this is a very, very short example just to give you like a rough understanding of how it works. And then we also always map the emotions not only in time but also in space. So for every single second of a gameplay we also extract the XY coordinate of where the player is on the map. And then we map it with the corresponding timestamps and emotions that we measured there. And then we can, based on the color coding that you can see here, again the same two-dimensional emotional representation, we can depict where on the map which emotion the players had on average. So I think this was for around 10 players the average when they played Divinity Original Sin. So this is also something that is possible. And in general, we get a lot of data as an input from such a session. So we have a playtester who is sitting in front of the game, playing the game. We get the EEG data, we get the ECG data, we get the galvanic skin response and the eye tracking. So there's a lot of input, and we somehow need to triangulate all of that to gain the most valuable insights for the game studio. So we developed another tool where we can triangulate all this data. So it allows for visual and intuitive data analysis, and I can show you just a few examples how it looks like. So this is now from a game that we tested recently, and you can see basically every single second of the gameplay, so the recording, and then you can see also the alpha, beta waves, all the EEG data that we record, and you can see, okay, in a highlighted fashion where or when did the player have high frustration values if you want to focus on that, and then you can see all of that highlighted, so you can see on the timeline, okay, whenever this happened, the player had high frustration values, and you can also see it triangulated with the interview that we conduct afterwards, so we always have a user researcher analyzing and observing the player while he plays the game, and then afterwards conducting an interview, asking questions based on the emotions that he had. So when we, for example, see, hey, the player was really frustrated when he tried to get across the building, we can go a bit deeper into that. And then we also do, we have this semantic search function. So here the search field is this one up here. So this was from a test that we did recently from a first-person shooter game. So there was a problem that at some point the hit marker was not there, and so the hit is not highlighted, and then you can directly see in the interview when the players were talking about that, and also see the emotional reactions to the specific time points in the gameplay when they had this problem. So yeah, that's just a really quick introduction. There's of course much more, but now I talked a lot, and Gustav also wants to talk.
Of course, I do have my own. So let's talk about me, finally. Alright, so Gustav, as mentioned, previously working in finance, this particular chart has very special meaning for me. As you can see, I probably didn't make much money there. And this was not the only reason why I decided to join gaming, but one of the reasons. Now it works, right? So, right now I'm working for gaming for 2 years for Pixel Federation. Pixel Federation, best known for train games, right? We do have other games, but since we are focusing on these two, Bad Boys and others in a train brand, we are building, I will be talking about those mostly for a while. Now, what our Trainline Nation is about is that it's 2 million people, monthly active users, highly engaged folks. They play 1 hour daily, 11 times a day, which is 45% better than competitors. They're a very loyal bunch. We have people playing the game for 3 years and more. 9% of the monthly active users are playing the game for every day. But you can read it, right? This is not really interesting for you. Why are we here, right? So why we did even start this is that we realized that, okay, Philipp has hands on the amazing tool, and it could be used in multiple ways. Me being from R&D, I thought that, all right, so there could be a case where you can use it probably much sooner to realize certain things. And this being the process of ours, it's pretty much probably everybody's in here, if they're making new games. We just wanted to, like, our first goal when we started this, and there is a twist to it, like we actually ended up having another goal, but please stay put for a while. We just wanted to mitigate the overall conceptual error, as we call it, right? Because we are not very good at killing games. We tend to, fall in love with them, and so, and these mistakes we usually do in a very early phase, they tend to be super costly for us down the way. So we just felt like, okay, we need to do everything possible and impossible at the beginning of the process, so that we don't get into the situation where there's a couple of million being spent and people not really wanting to kill the game. Like ideally, we don't going to go to this situation. So we really looked into the conceptual phase and thought that, all right, we need to do something more to prevent that costly error. Yeah, this conceptualization in our company, difficult word for me at least. We start always with target audience, which tends to be pretty similar for whatever reason, right? Like we go always for older, typically male, to be honest with you. So we specify that, and we know what they like. So basically, we know what mechanics work with them and these kind of things. So we always put a couple of those in works. We do DCMs, so on this features modeling. So we basically, pitch a couple of ideas like how could such a game work with our target audience. Having that, we know their preference, at least some preference, right? At least claimed preference. We go to workshop where we, say, oh, how could such a game look like? So we always tend to have the same audience in there, that this would be important further down the line. So that they have referral points to talk, like we discussed this yet, and always it's almost, all the time, it's the most senior people in the company, at least from the design perspective. They can hear me, I guess, right?
Well, the recording then.
Okay. Yeah. Then we put them in visuals, and well, at that moment we do market level tests. So we throw it at the market, so we know. So at that moment we know for whom we are making the game. We know what they say they want, which necessarily is the thing they really want. We know what they click on, so we really have the market level test. So we know that this game would be bought if it would be on the market, or at least installed. And then we know a lot of our plan data. So then we go into specifics and decisions, right? So this is basically how we do the conceptualization. But there was one kind of missing element. We always wanted to know not only what they claim, but also how they actually really feel, right? Like that, and that is what Brainamics is capable of bringing to the table. So we did this first test that we had seven participants. This is a pretty small one. We exposed them to 7 concepts, and we wanted to see what's good video reaction for that. And we also had market data for those 7 videos, so we knew how they're performing. And put them to the test. These were the numbers we saw right from there, and we got just this is specifics of that. We did target audience, which is ours, right? So maybe that's just to show how deep can you go if you choose to work with Brainamics, that you can go as far as tell them these kind of teams, if you want payers, non-payers, people who would be playing your game. This is how AI decides to show our players. Not necessarily realistic, but yeah. All right. So what we learned is not necessarily only related to concepts. Actually, it's more related to creatives. We realized pretty soon that we are not really testing the prototypes, which we probably should have known before, but we are testing creatives, how people react to that. But there was those findings could be obviously used because it's still at the beginning of the funnel, so it's interesting and it's easy to use it, right? So
what we learned is that if you manage to evoke strong excitement in the first 10 seconds of the video, your video has better chance to succeed, and which is not really surprising because else it's not going to be watched or something like that. But you can do it other way around, right? So you don't have to test these videos only on the market. You can test them also with EEG, right? So you don't have to always go for it and throw them in the market and get a nap of the audience or something like that. But you can go the other way around. So you know that, okay, I have like positivity at the beginning of the video. I know it's gonna be good, right? I know it's gonna be performing. And also, like I have this video, I know that what I have to do is to, iterate it up until it will have my best videos, right? I have to iterate it up until it will have the positivity at the beginning, right? So that's where we kind of took this to another level, or we wanted to.
Maybe on the previous slide, just one thing. So when we did this test, we in parallel run a market test. So I think Pixel Federation, we launched all the creatives that we tested in our lab. We also had the quantitative data. And why we could say that it's good to have a strong excitement burst in the first 10 seconds is because the videos which had this strong excitement burst in the first 10 seconds were the ones which had in the real market test low CPM and high CTR. So for those of you who are not from the mobile gaming, CPM is like cost per mil, cost per impression, basically, and CTR is click-through rate. So this is exactly what you want to have, high CTR, low CPM. And that's why we could say, okay, we have now this quantitative behavioral data from the real market, and we can correlate that with the in-lab emotional data that we have. So this is basically where we made this rule, so to say.
Yeah, absolutely true. So, so this is basically your quarterback in high school. Like this was the best video we had. It was the one which was actually people even put the best marks to it. They also so it was the video which performed best on the market, like the lowest CPIs, highest CTRs, and it also has the biggest positivity at the beginning, the 0.25, presumably, based on what Philipp said, is pretty high already. So this was one of the things we kind of found there. But so for this, you might be saying like, okay, you can do this with market, right? And you would be right. Like we don't need Brainamics for that anyway. But there are things which we wouldn't be able to find on the market because there are some, like let's call them hidden gems, where like there was a massive positivity at the end of the video, which people probably wouldn't be even watching because the beginning was not strong enough or something like that. So this was a video which would not perform very good in the market, but you will see that there is something in it, right? So we kind of thought, all right, so there is another way of working with this kind of data, and also like we were able to identify the spot where the video was, getting positive reactions, and that I can tell you that now because this is actually like a couple months ago. It was the moment where there was a merge mechanic kind of introduced. So we thought that, all right, so why don't we try to, it's probably quite natural to think about it. Like we will put the best beginning and best end of the video, and we will have the best performing video ever, we thought. And there's a moment like, you see, like again, positivity at the beginning, positivity at the end of it, high expectations. Also, kind of like okay, if this is this easy, it's going to be game changer. No, the result was not very good, unfortunately. But we didn't give up that easily. We thought, all right, we can work with this. We have some information which we didn't have before. We have excited people, which is probably one of the better things with working with new kind of data is that people get excited. People want to know more, so you kind of open their minds. And so this is a product of this guy. His marketing is from our team, and he's like a very rare combination. I'm presenting as a tool. Kind of is actually for me in this sense, but in the best way possible. That we have a person who is like an artist and data analyst in one person, right? And so what he did that he put another layers on that. So it wasn't just the data from Brainamics. It wasn't just the data from the market like CPS. It wasn't even data just from the service which we had in there. It was like he analyzed what is the color scheme there, what is the he analyzed the story Frankly, the one with that, we just put two things which didn't really make sense together based on the data, so he created new video based on all the information he had from this, and we threw it on the market, and it kind of identified the best performing elements of the video, and that way we were able to manage to hire our CTRs. So that was quite astonishing for us, and also because, again, think about your creatives. You probably will have a couple of creatives which are doing most of your money somehow, and so if you can make it just a little better, it doesn't have to be a lot, but just a little better, it could mean tremendous things to the company. So besides, I don't know if you could say that we were able to mitigate that conceptual error, but for the sake of this presentation, let's say we did a little. We have visualization of that, which is not really precisely quantified, but you know what we. Thank you, much better. But not only that, but what were we? How does this work? Sorry, one second. Oh, there's only so many clicks in this. So.
Sing us a song.
Song?
The song is definitely
You are a good singer. We do have, for this.
Okay, but you're a good dancer, I heard.
No, but also you did prepare a story for the situation yesterday, didn't you?
Oh, no, I'm not gonna share the story.
Yeah, sorry guys. Maybe we can do, and this is actually planned, we wanted to do a Q&A in the middle of the session. Do you have some questions already?
I do
Anybody?
have.
Wait a second.
Okay, that would be. Yeah, thanks. So, what I would like to ask if you have any experience with the kids running some games for kids with this brain analysis, because I'm a kids games developer and I'm really interested in that. And we do some tests, we do some interviews with the kids and with the parents, but we don't have those kind of tools, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, we try to do it. The problem with kids is most of the kids they are a bit more shaky. So when they sit in front of the game, they just move more. And it's important when you have the EEG on that you don't move too much. Also, kids have stronger face expressions, so there's a lot of muscle contractions which creates additional noise, which our algorithm is not trained to denoise, because our training data set fully relies on adults. And another problem is that the EEGs that we have there, so the frames are 3D printed for adult-sized heads, and typically too big for kids. So that's why we don't test with kids, unfortunately. Sorry.
Very unfortunate. Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah. It's on. Okay. So I have some questions about the methodology, and I would really like to know how long those sessions take. And because the sample is small, of course, there's the logistics. Do you repeat? Do you work with the same testers? And does all-turn effect happens because they are being observed, and how this impacts the data?
So regarding the sample size, we typically differentiate between qualitative research and quantitative research. So when you do a qualitative research, we just take 6 to 10 people, so really small, such as in this example. So that's if you want to really have a in-depth view on one specific or a few specific people. But we also do conduct a quantitative research. Quantitative, it's still a small n, so it's 25 to 30 people. It's not a lot, but there you can already start making statistically significant derivations from that. And so it really depends. So also the duration from 30 seconds creative clips to 8 hours gameplay, we already did everything. So it's possible, but we always make a break after 2 hours. because otherwise it gets a bit too heavy, the EEG. And regarding the focus of the playtesters, because of course they are in a testing phase, but when you actually play the game, you get immersed, you don't feel that you have the EEG on the head, so you completely forget about it. But still, of course, we can never account for this test environment. It's always a little bit different than when you are playing by yourself on your couch at home. But I think there's no real methodology to completely filter out this. What we always do before a test is we collect the baseline. So, for example, you might be in a really bad mood when you come to the playtest because, I don't know, your dog died or something like this. And then we collect your baseline, and everything that we measure during the playtest is put into relation to the baseline that we collect before and also after the playtest, so that we can account for any mood that you might have.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. We've got that's the end of our slides interview, but there will be questions at the end. I think we're all good to go now. So yeah, don't worry, your questions will be answered, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure your particular question will not be answered. And this personal, no, just kidding. Yeah, we're really looking forward to that one. It has to be very, yeah. Okay. So again, like we believe that we kind of were able to mitigate it over conceptual error, but that is one of the goals. No.
No.
Not this again.
I've got a question. It changed. It's working.
Ah, that's not a question. Thank you. So yeah, yeah, we were able to mitigate that uncertainty, as mentioned 20 times already, but also we were able to accomplish CTR boost, which actually kind of switched our focus from the previous goal, because we realized that we can do much better things with that one than the previous one. Now I have a little section about tips and tricks we learned along the way, and these things with Brainamics. And so first is that in the learning process, what we usually do, as mentioned before, we always get the same people to the table, and when we estimate like what would be the risk and reward of the particular project, we have them fill out this kind of questionnaire, and we put values to that, and it's always really like kind of telephone numbers, you feel like, because like how do you know, like, okay, the reward is kind of like you can know it from the videos or something like that, so you can kind of project that from the audience to addressable market and these kind of things. But the risk, or rather, like how much would you have to invest in that, it's like you can do a production plan, but you never can foresee all of the things. But what we learned along the way is that when we did this, especially the risk part or the cost part of this, it's really cool to have the same people always on the table, because when they do this, they refer from to the one. But when we did the similar concept, it was this. So the numbers which were like first they didn't make any sense. They start to make sense for them because they can compare one project to another. And so that's my suggestion. We can always the same people on the table. So like you eventually end up doing that one or even this one, right? So that's the first thing we learned on doing the learning process. One is we did also questionnaires with people having the EEG on their heads, and what we saw was, again, things you would probably expect, but you would be surprised how frustrated are the people when they have like very difficult questionnaire. Like, you really need to keep it simple. What we saw was that this strike of dopamine, I guess, when they change section actually. So if you want to keep them entertained, I mean that's not the thing you want, right? Like this is not the game for them, but maybe so that you keep their level of interest, change sections. Also, that's why you don't want to have too many questions in one section, right? Or segment. And what really people liked, that was kind of surprising for me, that was the only part which they really enjoyed of the questionnaire, was asking about their favorite games. That was like kind of even moving to a certain extent, seeing that people really like to talk about their favorite games. So yeah, if you do questionnaires to your players, these are the little hints. I have one more, kind of weird, and certainly seasonally related. This probably would not work in March, I have to assume. But what we saw, right now we did another test with Philipp, and we had always like 2 versions of video, like a winter and sunny one, and we saw like 30% better positivity of the videos where there was snow involved, which doesn't necessarily mean that we will have more installs of it, but it is interesting information. Like, and also, if you ask like how bold are you when putting snow in a video, like this bold, like really, literally, you just put snow on it, and yeah, yes you would, and so again, that's positivity. It doesn't say that you will have better, CTR or something like that. But it's a long game, right? So your players need to see your game on multiple occasions. Why not having them, feeling some positivity when seeing your videos? Careful with the season, right? Like maybe this was done in October, I want to say. The test.
Yeah, we collected it.
So it could be like people start to feel Christmassy or something. But it was interesting. So, and also like what I'm trying to say is that there is a tool which helps you to get these little things together. Another thing, this is a chart of how people, of positivity, it's an average of all the videos they saw. So what we try to accomplish right now is that to find the best possible pattern. Again, that pattern will be probably different for different audience, of course. Again, there will be a lot of things going into that, but it's interesting exercise, to try to find how you want to start. But it's kind of like you start with excitement, and people kind of get bored, and then hopefully you will have them the video finishing strong. You could probably say that also without this tool, but to kind of mitigate it, maybe test super different patterns or something like that could be nice exercise having this tool. And that's basically all for myself. Like, I just want to finish with one thought. For me, again, this is not that much only about making more money, having more players playing the game, or learn. And they don't even want to play the game. For me, this is mostly about like we have these tools to know how the people feel like we can make our games better, like more fun, or even so that people feel better in their lives or something like that. We have tools to measure that, how they feel. So that's how I want to end it. Like we can let's make them feel better, I guess.
Thank you, Gustav and Philipp. Now we do actually have time for questions. So yes, are there any? Yes, one.
What's yours?
No, not the one. You didn't put your hand up.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. As a ux/ui designer, I find this topic very, very interesting. I was wondering about the gaming part, where you have all the mood swings and everything recorded and data. Are there any recording about the buttons that are pressed? Because I'm thinking about correlations on the expectation of what could happen in that command, and I was wondering that.
Yeah, so we also, we collect basically every input we can collect, so we have a very multimodal data set, and everything that we collect during any session is then also used for the fine-tuning of our models. So in the case of mobile gaming, we collected touch screen, also the strength of the touches, and on the controller and PC, we also track the input always. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you personify the playtesters at all? Like, it's such a broad range, and if you've only got 4 or 5 playtesters, I'm just really interested as to if you personify them to people who are already engaged with the game, who enjoy the game, then you can potentially look at how to enhance the game because of their reactions to the game. Or if you don't, is there a way that you can find new users that would correlate with your game, so new personas basically that would correlate with the game, that you could then look to bring in different forms of advertising?
Yeah, it's a really nice question. Actually, we should add it for the next presentation. So we always classify the players according to the self-determination theory. So each person has a couple of motivators why they play the game. Maybe you've heard of Quantic Foundry. This is like this motivator model of why players play a game and why a game is fun. And it's also based on the self-determination theory. So, for example, if you are really into competition and you like challenge, then there's a couple of features in the game that drive those motivators for you. So whenever you encounter those features, we can double check if the emotional response that you show fits to the specific motivator that is supposed to be driven by the feature that you just encountered. So that's how we do it during the test, and typically the people that we work with, so the game studios that we work with, they already have a very clear view on what type of players they have. Like as Gustav, for example, he knows his target audience pretty well, and then we can test. We can check in our tester database who fits to this game, also from a psychological perspective. So we know about every playtester, what is his psychological profile, what are his major motivators, which games does he play, and so on. And then based on that, we basically recruit the exact personas that fit to the game, because the customers want that. Sometimes there's an exploratory test where we can check, okay, does potentially this slightly different niche target group also respond well to the game, or how does it respond to the game? It's also sometimes of interest of the customer, but it's of course always a question of if there's a resource to explore something like this.
Thank you. Is there anyone? Oh, yes.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I'm really into neuroscience, or I come from the neuroeconomic science, but I think it applies to a little bit how the consumer behavior at the end of the day. What's the cost of doing a playtest like this one? Because of course, if I would want to do the perfect playtest, I would come to Brainamics, but what's the downside? I guess it's a lot more expensive than a normal player where you just put players to play and answer some questions.
Yeah, I mean, when we started 2 years ago, we started with the first playtest, roughly. There we had like very competitive pricing because we wanted to get first customers and so on. That's when Gustav was lucky enough to start with us. But yeah, right now, because it's a lot of effort and we have a little bit of struggle stacking up the team to serve all the customers. So right now we have for the 6 people playtest 8,500 euros, and that's like the lowest, smallest package that we have. And then it goes all the way up depending on what your needs are. So right now we're mostly working with bigger game studios actually.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, one. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your insights. And since most of these aspects, as you were mentioning on your presentation, sound like subjective aspects, because in a moment where I might be feeling happy, someone else will be feeling sad, or in also very other similar situations like the part of the snow and so on. So for these situations where usually when we test we use ample sample sizes to compensate for this so we can have a general idea, how do you manage to make it with such a small sample? Is it just because the quantifiers you're mentioning before usually make up for it because you have very specific personas, or how do you play around that?
Yeah, it's also a good question. So yes, the persona or the very specific recruitment that we do, the very specific targeting that we do already helps, but it doesn't solve the problem. So when we do a qualitative research, we really dig deep into the specific experience that this specific tester had and describe it and analyze it independently, more or less, of the other 5 to 10 playtesters that were a part. And basically every result that we get from a qualitative playtest is always with the disclaimer that it's not statistically significant in any nature, but it still delivers very insightful hints for the game design team about which feature is perceived how by this specific target group. But it is never statistically significant if you have less than 25 or 30.
Also, with what you said about the snow thing that was done with 20 people, making it probably more relevant, at least a little. And for me, it's also those insights, and it's also about the process. Like, people think differently when seeing this. Like, designers, marketers, everybody, like, when they see the immediate impact, like, of course they know there's an impact on people, but seeing it
And also like seeing that this particular feature has this, or this particular, as for example the merge mechanics, has the same effect on everybody, it shifts how they do things. For me, this is also very important.
And also, the thing is that some emotional reactions you don't want to have at all, right? So if you have a usability issue in your game, and the players get quite frustrated, and this is a potential turn point, even if there's only 1 out of 10 having that issue, you want to erase it already. So that's why whenever someone is at the very beginning of a game, a very non-optimized game, a qualitative research is probably the right way to go. But if you have a really well-performing game and you want to optimize it even further, that's when you probably have to go to the rather quantitative research.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Oh my goodness, there's still more. Okay, here we go.
Hi, a very interesting and insightful talk. I was wondering, the analysis on creatives in order to optimize the CPM and CTRs mostly relates to that first part of the user funnel leading up to the install of the app. I was wondering if you followed through after the install and if you found any correlation between the best performing creatives on CPM and CTR and the best performing creatives on things like first session duration, retention, and LTV.
Well,
Very good question. Well, first of all, you need to think about like we don't.
Good question.
That's,
There was no game.
yeah, the first was not no game, but I'm thinking about the second one where we basically the best performing creatives for us were not necessarily only with the best CTRs. Those are where we can use those players for a long period of time. Use those, entertain them. Sorry. If that answers your question a little.
Not really, but thank you.
I think the first, so we tested first all the existing games that you had, but there we didn't focus on the creatives. But then when we started this creative testing, I don't remember exactly which game idea it was, but there was no game, so we couldn't analyze the retention, playtime, whatever at all, because it was just market testing with a concept of with an idea of a new concept, but there was no game. And right now with Train Station, but you didn't focus on the.
Well, also what must be said is that like this data is still being analyzed. Like this first couple things I mentioned is that like things you saw immediately. But yeah, there are things to be done with this. So sorry for not having better answers. We will have them, but in foreseeable future. Very vague, but maybe let's stay in touch, and I'm going to update you on the problem.
Sure, no problem. Thank you very much.
Yes. So I'm on the snow still, thinking about the snow.
It's a little
Obviously, you did the EEG research on that, and you saw 30% more excitement, or whatever was the title of the slide. And then you went and you launched it as creative, and you saw there was successful creative, correct?
No, not really. Okay, so those creatives we used in the second test were all like very good creatives, like some of those which really work for us. And we tend to have versions with snow and not snow for different seasons. So because those creatives, they can run for years, right? So yeah, they were good performing creatives.
Okay, so here's my question. You ran those snow creatives and you ran them against non-snow creatives, and you saw that the snow creatives are performing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also took those snow creatives through the lab, and you saw that they generate 30% more excitement against the control. And then you validated that yes, those no creatives are more exciting, right? But you already knew that. You see that from the UA data that these creatives are stronger. That's my question.
We not, as mentioned, no, we don't really. I mean, also like the fact that you have more positivity in it doesn't necessarily mean that you will have better numbers from that. We cannot maybe retain those players or something like that. It's just, for what I wanted to say with that is that these little things, you can measure them and use them to, kind of make people feel differently. Also, like, again, this goes to probably some of our players seen many of our creatives before they obviously install the game, right? So what I was saying is that since this is how it works, I know that many people will have to see 7 of those or something like that before they install the game. Maybe I know I could see that from the numbers. Like we never really did something like a snow, sample or something like that. Maybe we might, right? Because of this. It answers your question.
More or less. I'm trying to think. Why did you need to use the lab for this?
We didn't go only for this. Like this is obviously not. We are not testing snow. That was not. That would be very irresponsible with money, I guess. We just like that's one of the findings, right? Like that's like when you see that's. To be frank with you, I just wanted to see like peaks. I wanted to see what people reacted most to. I didn't know because things I would know or would kind of expect, I don't need to test obviously. I just want to see some things which, like, again, those hidden gems, I guess.
Okay. Okay, thank you. But I would keep testing the snow even in March. Not with the lab necessarily, but I think it'll still work.
Thank you.
Free. Maybe
free.
Free.
Wow.
Use it. Maybe to add to this, so I think in general it's not about the purpose was for Gustav also to find out which elements and which features of a creative elicit which emotional response for a specific target group, to take this information to then craft potentially other creatives that might have similar performance on the market or even better ones. So it's to gain this psychological understanding of the target group, not essentially using us as a tool to see which is the best creative, because as you said, for that you can just check the numbers from the market, right?
So for us, this whole push is about making the best creatives a little better. Like if you can add 10% on them, that's money.
Okay. Cool. Is there anyone else want to ask anything? We hope you have extra time. Oh yes.
Hi, sorry I came in late. So if you mentioned it already, just let me know. But I was wondering for the tips you were talking about, how you want to test it on the same people, right, for better results, because sometimes you don't necessarily know certain results means, because it was kind of confusing. Was that what we were saying about that?
Okay. Same people, you mean?
Yeah, like you were saying that sometimes some results don't make sense to you. So you were saying, like from time, if you tested with them with multiple tests, then it makes sense. But I was wondering, what are those confusing results? Like, what do you mean exactly about this?
Yeah, I might mislead you now that I see that badly too. What I was talking about was about the team members, right, in the R&D process. That you won't bring the same people when you are evaluating the project.
Yeah, like the tips and tricks part, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and so my suggestion was that if you keep the same experts on a panel, because if you, so you could try to quantify like how positive will be the development of the game, right? And from a different angles, so it will be art, technologies, or these kind of things. And we try to put it on this kind of scheme or whatever, and in a chart, right? And so we try to quantify something which is not difficult. I mean, yeah, of course you can go as far as like I will need this much of characters or these kind of things, but especially if there are more complex questions to be asked. To quantify this, it's super difficult, or like to give it a value. Like this is 4 out of 10 when it comes to difficulty of doing it. If you have the same people, again, like 4 could mean nothing at the beginning, but doing more and more projects. But that was 4. That's the reference point, right? So that's what my suggestion was. If you keep the same people, they will have the same reference points, and so numbers which didn't make sense before start to make sense. So that was just something I found helpful for myself, I guess.
Oh, yeah, no, it makes sense, yeah. I was wondering, is that like a guideline that you guys set up for, let's say 4? Would you like say, what does it mean exactly to the team of people? Like, was it,
yeah. Yeah. That's why it's good to have
yeah, that's true, yeah, okay. Alright, thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Oh, one. Okay, last one, I think, and then.
Okay, thank you. And I have a short question about money. You said that you have different packages and so on. But my question about also said that significant correctly value of people is 25 or 40, and how much it costs to check game or creatives with this significant correctly amount of people.
I mean, there's no correct amount of people. It really depends on what you want to find out. So if you're very early stage, you want to check the usability, then you definitely don't need more than 6 people, right? But in terms of pricing, actually, I don't have all the numbers in my head.
But I have the number.
Yeah. So I think so. Now we have a playtest with 27 people, and this one costs 47,000 euros.
Okay.
So thank you again, Philipp and Gustav.